What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and no matter if you have gotten into AQ yet or your gates haven't opened yet and you're getting in there soon, you are probably curious about how hard the actual dungeon is, especially compared to things like private servers or how we remember it, which is mostly people's memory from actual private servers. A lot of people are talking or videos are being presented of just everyone steamrolling through the dungeon. And does that actually translate to how it actually is for everyone? Like, is the instance actually easy or is it hard? Can you just pug your way through, or are there any bosses that are gonna actually give you a hard time? I know a lot of us did watch Onslaught's run for their actual NA first, and if you did, and if you didn't yet, I did break all of their strategies they used down. But if you watch something like that or watch any sort of speedrun guild run through this, they were all prepared. Every one of these speedrun guilds had practice on private servers, let's just be honest. And every one of them came in with full consumes, more consumes than they needed, more gear than they needed, and they probably did steamroll it. So if you watched any of those streams, it probably looked extremely easy. But is it going to be the case for you guys or for everyone? I guess not even just for you guys. I should have made this video earlier, but I actually got into AQ on Friday for the first time, and I wanted to do it a few more times, also on the mage and on the warrior, just so I could have a good grasp of how it is for different levels of raid groups. So with that said, of course, if you like this sort of a video, please make sure to like and subscribe and let me know in the comments, but let's dive right into it. There is actually a lot of people that have gone through this and just kind of blasted through literally everything in here. And that was actually kind of my experience in our first run as well. We destroyed pretty much everything in here, but my guild was prepared. We came with more consumes than necessary, with more caution than necessary as well. We went into here pretty much assuming that things were as tuned as heavily as private servers, even if we had watched the other runs. So going into the raid, we took things very slowly. And I think if you take things very slowly, a lot of the things that could be scary mechanic wise are a lot easier. Like, this raid isn't really a rush yet. We weren't really speed running. And if you're not speed running, a lot of things that could get you in a little bit of trouble won't. Willie, the other YouTuber, actually made a video about how hard AQ was from his perspective, and he actually broke down a lot of the numbers, and mine's kind of going to be a little more of a personal experience. He goes through Warcraft logs and actually shows that it looks like about half of the guilds, less than half of the guilds that killed the first boss actually killed Cthulhu. And so the real question is there a stopgap? Like in BWL, a lot of the guilds on their first run ran into issues with Firemaw. Like, a lot of the guilds ran into issues with Firemaw. And you also saw issues in the suppression room, because if you were moving up on the left side, it would aggro the top of the suppression room, and we weren't trying to do that on purpose at that time. Nothing really at the beginning of the raid is that intimidating. You could use greater arcane protection pots for Scarum, the first boss, or you can just kick him. I feel like you see the first half of this raid being a lot easier than we anticipated. It isn't exactly the easiest raid out there. And if you want to just blast through this dungeon, you only need to kill 5 bosses. Even though there are 9 bosses in the entire raid, just a lot of the bosses are technically optional. There's a lot of things in here. There's a lot of trash skips you can do, and there's a lot of trash that was expected to be scarier than it is, but there's some trash that's definitely scarier than we thought. So skipping forward to the Anubisath destroyers, the mobs before actually going to Twin M's. These actually are, it's a trash mobs that I actually lost buffs on multiple characters. We actually accidentally pulled 2 of these in our alt run and it wiped us, so everybody lost buffs. But on this run, I get the plague and get locked out by another person with plague from moving to a more safe spot. So I actually will die and lose my buffs right here, which is really unfortunate. It sucks to lose your buffs so early on in the raid, which it isn't technically early on, because if you're moving forward in a normal way, then you would actually do Twin Emps second to last, or you could with Oro last, but it's a scarier pull. And so this is in our first run, and it was really messy. If your guild isn't organized, it can be a little intimidating, and people can get the plague. Like I got the plague, and I should have ran out way faster than this until I just waited to smack some people, and I just sit here and just die. Look at all of our healers. No one's healing me because everyone's taking so much damage, because there's the thunderclap mechanics, there's the shadow bolt mechanics, and also like meteor mechanics. So there's some things in here that aren't necessarily as easy. I don't have footage of us trying to do bosses on our alt run, but during the normal run, the speed run, if you're in a normal full guild, you're just gonna smack through literally everything in here. But the real challenges in this raid are actually either the trash pulls or some of the optional bosses. For the most part, if you saw some of the other streams, a lot of people had a lot of issues with Viscidus. And the big question was, will we need nature resistance for Princess Huhuran? And the answer is no. Any good guild, or not even a good guild, in our alt run with no world buffs and a lot less consumes, we were able to just burn that boss down with no nature res. So you do not need nature res for Huhuran, but Viscidus is a challenging fight. And early on, frost wands were not working, and things like icy chill is apparently working. So be aware of that. Icy chill is working on Viscidus. So get your icy chill, get your frost oils, start with your frost wands, get your fast ones. That was the big stopgap for a lot of speedrun guilds. If you got through and one-shot everything else in here and then ran over to Viscidus, it was probably the hardest boss for you because of getting the timing right on your sappers and making sure that everybody had enough nature resistance. But it was like pretty simple for speedrun guilds. In all honesty, this was very, very easy for a speedrun guild. But what did it mean for like a normal guild or a normal clear? So without world buffs in our alt run, this was a lot harder. The first 4 bosses are extremely simple. Bug Trio is extremely simple. Prophet Scarum, super, super easy. Huhuran, very, very easy. Thancris is actually the easiest fight of all time. You just sit there and try to do as much damage as you can as fast as possible. There's no mechanics for you to worry about. Just stack up. I guess you can AoE down the ads. You can kill them before any of the worms spawn without world buffs. Sartura, make sure you have a lip ready, but it's also an easy fight to just stun it down and kill the boss. But then is where you hit the harder fights. Viscidus, Uru, and Twin Emperors. Those are the big stopgaps for a lot of guilds. It looks like almost half of the guilds that were able to kill the first boss, Prophet Scarum, were pretty much stopped by Twin Emperors. And that's kind of like the first real challenge. If you're just trying to kill Cthulhu, Twin Emperors is where a lot of guilds are seeing issues. If your tanks don't have mitigation gear, they are going to take a lot of damage. Threat can be an issue for people because your tanks are wearing mitigation gear and therefore aren't pumping as hard as they could potentially. And then also your warlock tanks need their shadow resistance and stamina. You actually don't need to stack that much shadow res, but you need a lot of health. So having flasks is pretty big for this fight. Also, there's a lot more mechanics to be involved with or to care about on this fight than there is for some of the other fights. Like you just saw Thancris and we literally just slapped him. We did a sapper, but that was it. It's pretty simple. But Twin Emps is the first stopgap. Even without world buffs, you do want decent gear. You do want a lot of communication so that you're doing the mechanics well. And you should want your tanks and warlock tanks to have flasks because they will take a lot of damage. These bosses, both of them hit extremely, extremely hard, so be ready to have mitigation gear. Cthulhu, the big bad of this raid, is honestly the 2 times I killed him, we 1-phased him, so he's not like that intimidating, but even to do a 2-phase of Cthulhu, it's not the most intimidating. I feel like Twin Emperors was a bit harder than Cthulhu, potentially, but I don't know because my alt raid didn't actually get to kill Cthulhu. It does seem like Twin Emps is a big stopgap, and if you can down Twin Emps, you should be able to down Cthulhu and all of the rest of the bosses. Maybe not Viscidus if you don't have nature resistance gear and your frost proc weapons. Uro, or Oro, I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced, is another challenging boss, but if you guys take it simple and take it slow, a lot of these bosses can just be downed in a really long fight. It's really not a big deal as long as you have the mana to sustain and focus on just doing the mechanics right. It could be a really long fight and you can down it. So this raid, was it hard? Was it as hard as we expect? And will it be hard for you guys? Honestly, it depends on how good your guild is, but it is a step up from Blackwing Lair. It absolutely is a step up from Blackwing Lair. It isn't as hard as it was on private servers, so everyone who was in a guild that prepped a lot for private servers and is coming with full consumes and knows all of the pulls and all of the strategies shouldn't have that many issues. Some pug runs can clear it pretty easily, but some pug runs have a lot more issues. Without world buffs, it isn't the simplest of raids, but it isn't the massive guild breaker that a lot of people were assuming it would be. That's also kind of a point of contention because a lot of things like loot in this raid are very rare and very, very huge upgrades. So you will see a lot of drama over loot coming from this raid. It's like almost a guarantee in almost any guild. But I think that anyone that goes in knowing all of the strategies, your guild will clear this raid. Twin Emps is the first real progression boss in here. And if you can kill Twin Emps, you can kill the rest. So go into this raid anticipating it to be harder than it is, but make sure that you're prepared and you'll be honestly delighted. It'll be an enjoyable experience. This raid is really fun. Good luck to everybody out there. If there's something I missed, like I know the raid was really buggy initially because Blizzard decided not to PTR it for some reason, even though everyone that was in a hardcore guild was gonna run the raid no matter what. But other than that, if there's something I missed, definitely let me know in the comments, guys. If you do want to know really fast, like dagger rogues, the big question is dagger rogues, how was being daggers versus being swords? We were thinking there was going to be a lot of issues with being daggers and being able to get behind mobs or bosses and backstab, and I didn't really see many issues with that. Although you didn't really get to cleave that much, there wasn't really that huge struggle. Also, you should know, or everyone should know, that phase 2 of Cthulhu, you want to be on the side that you enter the boss's room because that is the back of the boss. If not, you're going to get parried. Every private server guild or most private server guilds are used to being on the opposite side, the far side after you enter the room. And that is not going to help you out, guys. You're going to get parried. You're going to lose out on a lot of damage. Your dagger rogues aren't going to be able to backstab at all. Just go to the front of the room where Cthulhu is. Guys, good luck on loot out there. Of course, if you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys for all of the support. I'll be making a ton of videos, guys, with the new content. There's a lot to cover, so I will be going through everything. And of course, you can check out my Twitch TV/Sarth, streaming every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday now, Friday, Saturday. So I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.